Okay.
Great. So I've read through these. I like them a lot. Um, how would you like to proceed? Would you like to go through each one? Did you have a particular uh, idea of what you'd like to spend the time on?
Yes. Um, uh, Here is where I'd like to get some clarity. From the customer's perspective, I understand where the line is sort of between curiosity and interest and how you pass from one to the other as a customer. In terms of formulating the questions, I had a difficult time figuring out what are interest questions and what are curiosity questions, or is it context independent? That is just, there's no hard and fast rule about that.
Yeah, there's no real asset test. Curiosity is like, say you drive by a house and you wonder what it costs. Okay. You're curious about that. You're not really interested. Interested at meaning that you're in market for a house.
Right.
Now, if you're in market for a house, then you want to know the price and you probably want to go to the open house, then you've got interest. So you
Mm-hmm.
probably understand the difference. What we want to do as salespeople is gauge what state they are currently in. And if you don't know, I would assume that you have to first build curiosity and then build it into interest. Interest,
Mm-hmm.
I feel active pain
Okay.
as opposed to latent pain. Latent pain would be like, oh, I've got to get a new set of tires, in the next couple years. Active pain is it's raining out and I kind of slid through that turn. you know, I'm starting to feel the pain of not having new tires.
Mm-hmm.
And as salespeople, what we want to do is kind of future pace people instead of having them wait until there's a problem, especially with what you sell. Uh,
Right.
the worst type of customer is the one that calls you panicked and it's too late. The deal's in the ditch and they assume that you can pull it out, where your job is to make sure it doesn't get into the ditch.
Right. And people are not always forthcoming about how much pain they're in or whether they're in pain or not. And so I'm having a little trouble, figuring out what are the kinds of questions that would gently move them to that place without having them say, we just got into this market and we don't know what we're doing, which they're not going to say.
They're not going to say. People don't want to feel pain because it's painful, uh, and they won't act unless they feel pain. So what we have to do is turn that latent pain into active pain. Otherwise, we'll stick at the vendor conversation level, talking about who you are, what you do, and how much does it cost.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't buy at that state. They're informed.
Right.
Yeah. So I think your questions are good, and we'll do that. I would kind of suggest to shorten them up, remove the conjunctions, like in the first one where you just gotten off a call with the government and or left a meeting. Just get rid of or left a meeting.
Okay.
But only because it's easier to remember for you and it's easier for them to comprehend.
Okay, that's easy to do.
Yeah. I like how you put kinesthetic or sensory words in, like feeling, because that's why they're going to do it.
What about the open-ended versus yes/no questions and how you intersperse those? And I mean, suppose you get somebody who just says yes or no all the time.
I think then you just have to have a backup. Like, could you tell me more about that time? How
Okay.
did that impact you? Who else did it affect?
Yeah, I forgot that whole dimension
Yeah.
about the other players to start to get insight into the other avenues for the complex sale.
Yeah, because the people you're going to be talking to, you have to pull that pain out because they want to feel comfortable, and you're not going to get a deal without them anticipating that pain.
Right. They want to appear competent.
They do. So you can't really move them away from their competency. I think you have to get them focused on the complexity of dealing with the government,
Yeah.
and maybe even use it with their analogy of how competent they are at what they do. You know, from the outside, I'm sure it looks really simple, but the devil's in the details.
Yeah. Yeah. As I'm looking at this, a number of these are really long, and it's true. I will never remember it all.
Right. And I would just look for the ors and the ands, and just turn them into two different questions.
Right. So there are the information that we provide. I could see how people think that they could get the same thing for free, and I was trying to get at that with, do you use search engines, that kind of thing, but it felt very awkward. I mean, a lot of these, when I was writing them, the constructions were awkward. It was sort of difficult to get there, and they read that way too.
Yeah, I think you're trying to cover all the possibilities.
Yeah.
And I think you're better off just getting it onto paper and then prioritizing these, or grade them.
Okay.
Is this an A question, a B question, or just a C question? But it's a powerful exercise because it gets you thinking like them.
Right. And I was in a job where I was a customer for this type of thing. At least I was somebody who would recommend that the organization consider making a purchase like this.
Yeah.
So to some extent, I actually was kind of part of the buying process inside one very big company and one relatively small company.
And I think if you listed the problems that you solve, and then did you do that and then come up with a question that would prompt them to think of that problem?
Well, that's the people come to us when ...
Yep.
Yeah. People, I mean, the stock answer has been people come to us when they want to win more business in this market. I mean, that's kind of, it's pretty general.
I think it's deeper than that. I think people come to you to understand how to best do business with the government.
Okay.
Is that true?
Yes. Well, of course, yeah, different customers, different reasons, but right. Increasingly it is people who want more business, and that's been a trend that we've noticed. Initially, the thought was people want to execute better on the work that they have and do that more efficiently. And as time has gone on, it's been more and more about how can we win more.
Okay.
And one of the taglines is like, do more and win more in the government market, something like that.
And how do you help them win more?
Some of it has to do with making sure that they have targeted correctly, making sure they know who the players that they should be talking to are, and making sure that they know the warning signs for something that would be a total waste of their time.
Okay.
So I guess, I mean, you could say all those things are the result of better understanding.
I think I like it. It's high level. People come to us when they want to win more business with the government. What we hear is that they've wasted enormous amounts of time or bid the wrong way, and by the time they found out, it was too late. So
and they wasted a lot of time and money in the process.
Yeah. Okay. Did you want to go through these one by one?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. We went through the first one. How do you interpret a contract clause when you've never seen it before? I would maybe, have you ever wondered if you are correctly interpreting contract clauses?
Okay.
Have you ever been confused by a contract clause and wondered if you were answering it accurately?
Okay.
Have you ever?
And sometimes it's not, the clause is not something that you actually have to respond to, but it's something that's basically stapled into your contract and you're going to be stuck living with if you get the work.
Okay.
That's more of the risk, really.
How about as far as which clauses they really enforce and which ones are just boilerplate?
Yeah, 90% of it's boilerplate.
Yeah. Well, and when I say boilerplate, I mean that it's there, but they never do anything about it.
There's a clause that they put in practically every single federal contract now that prohibits texting while driving. Really? Like, really? We need a contract clause for that? You're going to enforce that? I mean,
those are great possible questions to throw conversation starters.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember that in the 90s they had drug-free workforce clause.
Yeah.
As a sales
Still
rep,
there.
Yeah. My company would not sign that. And I go, you have to sign it. They're not going to take it out. And then they go, well, we can't have our engineers taking drug tests. I go, it's never going to happen.
Right.
You know, it turned into a CEO decision. And of course, he just signs it. But those are great things to throw, red herring conversation starters. Okay. When was the
Right,
last?
they're going to have somebody in the car to make sure you're not texting. How exactly would that work? I mean,
Right. And if you got a ticket for it, then you lose the contract. Is that how it works?
I am so against people texting while driving, but really, I mean,
Yeah.
there has to be a better way.
Right. It's yeah. When was the last time you were confident of how the government was going to respond to your proposal?
I think I could just get out suggestion, kill suggestion or communication. Maybe just respond to you or.
Yeah. Confident or confused, or more of a kinesthetic word of pain.
Yeah.
Have you ever been frustrated by how the government was going to respond to your proposal?
What I was trying to get at is the feeling that we have on the industry side, that we lob our proposals over the transom,
Yeah.
and it just goes into this black box, and then N months later a decision comes out, and we basically have no idea what happens in that box.
Yes. You could build questions about that because you can help them understand what's going on inside that box.
Correct. We can't. There's no way we're ever going to know for sure, but given the talent on the team and the breadth and depth of experience, we can speculate pretty well.
Yes. And you can even flip it back to them. It's like, I'm sure you've worked there a long time and you know how things get done at your organization. And we're the same way. In probably organizations like yours, same size, same industry. And wouldn't it be nice to talk to somebody who's done that on the government side?
Yeah.
Okay. How often do you readjust your schedule because you can't figure out the government's timetable?
Yeah, that didn't come out right at all. But
yeah, I'd put it. How often have you ever been frustrated? Because I think the questions you want them to touch a nerve where they just open up. Have you ever been frustrated with the government's timetable?
Well, one thing that maybe I could turn around and see if something like this had happened to them was there were people who kept telling me that I couldn't go on a trip, and they were sure the RFP was coming out, and I always went anyway. And every single time that happened, I came home, and it still wasn't out. And often I went on another trip and came home, and it still wasn't out.
Yeah.
So anybody who plans time off based on when the government says it's going to release something will never have any time off.
Yes. And that's good because it affects them. It affects their forecasts. It affects their planning.
It affects their family. You know, it's everything. So how do we get that into a question that sounds better than what I have here?
Have you ever been frustrated with the government's timetable?
Yep.
And I think that would open up a wound.
Yeah.
How did it affect you and your family?
Right.
That might be a little too personal if you don't have enough rapport, but how did it affect your planning?
Yeah.
Your forecasting, your reputation internally?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that'll work. And that also, the reason I like that is that also doesn't put them in the place of, we have no idea what we're doing. It doesn't make them sound, incompetent or inexperienced. It's
Yeah,
it's a fact.
it's a fact, and everybody's got specialists.
Right.
What kind of conclusions do you draw when a person you're dealing with, the government, goes quiet? Again, I'd put like, how do you feel? Have you ever been frustrated
Okay.
when the government goes radio silent? How confident are you that you get good information from Google search engines?
That's what people do,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I think the analogy there is, if you had chest pain, Googling it's one thing, but you should go to the doctor. It's like, because it could be anything from a cold to cancer.
Right.
And the conclusion or the remedy is dramatically different.
And if you go to WebMD, everything is cancer.
Everything's cancer.
It's not particularly comforting.
Have you ever thought about what it would be like if you ask questions of the contract, yield useful information without crossing? Yeah, there you go. That's a key question.
I don't know. See, that one felt very awkward to me. I mean, it just seems wordy and
it is
convoluted.
But the point or the focus of it is right on. Have you ever wished you could just get a straight answer, an honest answer, an accurate answer from a contractor?
That's better.
Yeah, I would remove because they're asking you guys, and there's no ethical line there. Yep.
Well, this speaks to the fact that people are afraid that they're going to get the contracting officer in trouble if they ask certain questions. I mean, the fact is, there's no question that's illegal. It might be against regulation or even law for the contracting officer to answer certain questions, but it's never illegal to ask. But people have this idea that they're going to get the CO in trouble if they say certain things and ask certain things.
Yeah, and the CO is not going to answer or be available, first of all, and be forthcoming and be honest.
Right.
Most likely they're just going to give the runaround or point them to the official process. And I think what you're really trying to get at is, wouldn't you like to understand where it stands? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
What you can and can't do? Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually the easiest way to say it is, what you can and can't do, because there's a lot of urban legend about that.
Yeah. Have you ever considered how it would feel to have a trusted contracts expert on call and not have to engage a law firm? That is, I think you can either use an analogy there. Have you ever wished you could have an expert on call the way you'd have an accountant or a lawyer to make sure that you're doing the best you can with this proposal or opportunity. Here I am putting the conjunctions in there.
No, well, it's hard because
Yeah.
I'm never going to end up saying it exactly as scripted anyway.
Yeah, but it's good practice. It's really good practice.
Yeah.
Okay. When was the last time you spent too much time and money on a proposal that in retrospect was wired for somebody else? Yeah. Or have you ever, I think is a less.
Right.
Yeah. Because everybody has.
Knowingly or unknowingly.
Yeah. And, wouldn't it have been nice if you had a second opinion on the likelihood of that being wired for somebody else or truly open and competitive?
Yeah. That'll work.
How often do you lose or win a contract without really understanding why? That's a good one.
I hate to say it, this is not supposed to be funny, but
well, I'd soften it up a little bit. I would say,
yeah.
Have you ever, or we all have. How did it feel? Do you find it frustrating when you lose a contract? I would take out the win.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you want to crack any type of confidence they have that they've got this nailed. Right.
Although, again, some of these points are a little bit subtle and they probably belong in a later stage of the relationship, but people very often draw incorrect cause and effect conclusions, and they write a proposal, they win, and they draw the conclusion that it was because of the proposal, and they might have won despite the proposal.
Yeah.
They might have been the only bidder, or the other bidders might have just been horrible. It doesn't mean their proposal was good. So sometimes it is important to know why you've won.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. Do you ever wonder what it would be like to be able to assess where you really stand with retrospect to technology or solutions from the customer's perspective? Yeah, I would just tighten that up. Have you ever wished you had a second opinion on how the government would view your company?
Yeah, I like that second opinion. It's good.
Yeah. Are there days when you find that the efforts to surmount the obstacles to getting a government contract is just not worth the potential payoff? That's good. I think, again, you're looking for frustration, mystery, aggravation are the emotions you want to elicit from them.
Yeah, so maybe it should be that, like, are there days when you feel it's not worth it? It's too hard.
Yeah, too hard or different or mysterious or illogical.
Right. I'm concerned that this one might be crossing a line because we don't want them to get out of the market. We just want to help them do it better.
Yeah. And that's okay because you're not going to convince them to get out of the market. You're going to help them get into the market or grow in the market.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Now, we're coming up at the top of the hour, I know. Are there any of these that would not work if I were doing email or LinkedIn chat kind of things? Or in general, are these the types of things that really just work better once I've established phone or meeting contact?
Yeah, I think you have to have the know, like, and trust established before you build into these.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, you want to make it more third person.
Mm-hmm.
That way, people don't feel it's about them, and their opinion would not be revealing anything private.
So it would be in working with other companies. It seems that some people feel so and so.
Yeah, what
Like
we
that.
hear a lot. It's very common to hear, are you running up against something like this? If you can't get them on the phone, that these are reasonably, if they know who you are, they know you're not just pitching them, pushing them, that you want to engage in a conversation, that you guys are the experts in this space.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Great.
Anything else?
No, I think this has been really helpful. I'm gonna work on these, and as soon as I get the opportunity, test drive them and just see how it goes.
Great. I'll put this up in the sales questions or questions that sell course, so you can reference it anytime you like.
Great. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks. Bye now.
Have a good one.